Seraphim 17 once again. This is my Rise of the Tomb Raider Survivor difficulty video walkthrough. This is the Lost City. We're moving into Kitezh, and we're going to be taking on pretty much nothing but Deathless for the full duration of this encounter. There's going to be a couple of puzzles involving, what do they call them now? Trebuchets, which is just a fancy and technical way of saying catapult. It's probably French. It sounds French, doesn't it? It might not be French, I'm just ignorant. But it's a fun sequence. I mentioned in the previous video there's two sections coming up that can be tricky. The first one, for the people who've played this level and are just wanting to know what I'm going to be talking about, is the area with the mounted horse in the centre. And you walk into it and then you start getting attacked by two balconies with archers, ground troops, archers, ground troops, like that. And it's about 3 or 4 waves of enemies. Pretty tricky, that sequence. I've got a great strat for you, and I've got a pretty decent performance too, because I don't take any damage, and I even checked the difficulty because I was impressed with myself. And that is not to say that it's anything too impressive, but if you've played that moment, it can go wrong really fast. So it was a really good run, I felt. And then the second one is after you've broken the gate down, and you climb up that rocky cliff, and there's all those dudes waiting for you. That is a really tricky fight, because you die super fast, and they're everywhere. And I'm going to do that with my trusty shotgun. So look forward to that. But here is a bit of upgrading. Still don't have the Desert Eagle. I have the automatic, and you might wonder, Chris, why aren't you using it? It's simple damage, guys. I used the automatic for most of my last playthrough. It was okay, it was nothing impressive. Then I used the Desert Eagle. This game, I decided to use the revolver. More damage, a little bit of diversity for me, and I really enjoyed it. It's not the best gun, but I had fun with it. Unfortunately, I don't have enough resources because I've not been doing the tombs and scouring places and going back and what have you to upgrade its next damage. But if I did so, I reckon it would be pretty good. I hope I'm sounding okay as well, by the way, folks. I've spent the last 6.5 hours commentating this guide. I have not done a session like this in a very long time because I haven't really had the heart to do it like I used to. When I first started YouTube, like the first 2 years, I would commentate the guide from beginning to end in a single sitting. The more you do something though, it gets harder on you creatively because, you know, you feel like you've done it before, you don't feel like you've got anything worth saying, and it feels a lot tougher than it did when it came naturally. So you have to force yourself more. So over time I've gradually reduced that number to the point where sometimes I might only do like 2 or 3 videos, which might account to about an hour and a half, maybe less. And I'll just do it more days a week. Whereas I don't have any time for this guide. I recorded this guide yesterday, I edited it last night, and now I'm commentating all of it today. And if I do so, I will get it out of the way in time for Resident Evil 0. And that'll be awesome, because Resident Evil 0 comes out in about 4 hours, because it comes out on midnight. And I can get stuck in that, and I'm really looking forward to it. So this is, if I can continue this and finish these last few videos, I'm happy with what I've done. It's been a crazy day, and I don't know how I used to do it, man. I used to just be a machine. But as I mentioned, it came so much easier then. Like, I wasn't as good at commentating because I didn't have the experience I have now, but I had the passion that I find it trickier to muster because the game's getting easier, there's less to talk about, and I've spent a lot of time talking on videos to myself. By the way, guys, another one where the checkpoint fucks me. Watch this. I wasn't happy that I got hit by that ballista thing, that trebuchet, and it puts me in the middle of the road. And you know, if you run up that road after that checkpoint, there's about 40 fucking guys that instantly murder you. So I was really pissed at this point. But I've got a decent recovery strategy here as I try and get that guy off the zip line. But shoot a couple of pots up there. I get attacked by him, and that's luck. That's 100% luck. I saw him at the last possible moment. I pressed dodge, and I got the counter. And he vanished. But did you see the sneaky bastard with the shield? Here he comes, creeping up in, putting it in front of his face. He's pretty quick though with that, and he's going to try and swing at me. They swing about 2 to 3 times depending on where you are, and I find them quite tricky to get the dodge offer. The good news is he falls off this roof and then he can't get back on it, so he never bothers me again. So there's a epic strat for him, because I wait for him. I ain't silly. And he never comes, and then I focus back on going that way. But here's some irony for you. My first playthrough of this game, blind, on Survivor, I managed to get from where we started this point all the way up to that trebuchet on one swift path through the right hand side of this video, where I was going at the beginning before I got hit by the trebuchet and then that dude started shooting me with his arrows. And I got there without realising there was anything that could go wrong. And if I'd have been recorded, this would have looked beautiful. But instead, you get this butt-ugly, barnacled, wart-faced, stout-looking, pug-faced, nonsensical adventure of madness. And sometimes I prefer that, because it's nice to have some ugliness in the guides. Because if everything goes a little bit too cleanly, it can... I don't know, sometimes it can get a bit boring. I do like it to every so often. You have to get down and dirty and earn it. Unless you're doing a very particular type of playthrough where everything looks absolutely spot on, which is 100% not the case when you're recording it, but it looks like that after you've edited it. And then when you get up here, there's a firefight, so if you prepare for it, you can get some quick kills off the bat. That did not work. The next one will, but we still have an archer to contend with, and because my pistol's not so strong, he takes 3 shots to the face. Come on, Chris, get him, get him. Doing a little bit of the old shifty serious Sam dodging, so he doesn't shoot me. And I think that's the end of this wave. So now we get to play with the trebuchet. So, you'll notice in games, they do this all the time. Whenever you fire any kind of catapult, it does the whole slow, like, tracking shot with the cannonball as it hits something. I wonder where that came from and why it's so popular as this guy jumps at me. I don't know how he didn't hit me then, because the detection on these guys' attacks is all over the place. But choose your counter, stab him in the neck, and now it's over and done with. And we can start messing about with the pulleys and shit. So rotate it all the way to the left, and you'll see a gate. Stop it so that this beam in front of you is kind of like your crosshair, and then start charging. One thing to bear in mind with this machine, you want to be kind of further on than too short. Overshoot rather than undershoot, because if you undershoot there's a chance that the dip of the catapult will miss. And I don't mean this in regard to hitting the gates, I mean it more in regard to a section later on where you have to hit some archers. But now that the gate's down, we can jump onto the zip lines and we can move towards the centre of this city. And get our shit moving, son. But at this point, kind of like I said, a linear sequence of environments up until the end. And there's a kind of scripted climbing section towards the end, which I'm not the biggest fan of, because it slows you down a lot so that you can see the epic shit that's happening, but when you're trying to get through a game, you don't care. You just want to get up and play. And they're like, ooh, but you want to watch these people get pushed off this roof. And it does weird shit like that. But there's a lot of gameplay before we get to that, so I can't be too grumpy in regards to those moments where the game forces you to move to its speed so it can show off its nice titties. So there's the campfire, and I don't know if we're going to do much here. We don't have anything to do, so we're not going to do anything. There you go, straight out of the campfire and move onwards. But I'm trying to think what you could do to make this game trickier for a run. Obviously you can do no upgrades. No upgrades, no damage, no bow. That would be brutal. Absolutely brutal. But it wouldn't be that hard because this game isn't that hard. It'd just be a case of getting that really good run. And there's a couple sections that would be a nightmare. This would be one of them. So this is arguably the hardest fight in the game on my first playthrough, for me personally. And it's tough because there's a lot of dudes. However, you need to put this into perspective when I say these things, guys. I do not have any life upgrades, and I am not using the healing function, which means I have 1 life bar to win. And that is way stricter than what 99% of people playing this game will ever do. So for you, you might not have even noticed this moment because you have a considerably higher measurement of damage control. I don't, so I have to get creative. But it's intentional, you know, I'm doing it to myself. It's not like the game's doing it to me, I'm making it this way. So once you've took out the archer, these guys will rush you. He vanished after I killed him, but it wasn't a kill shot if you noticed, it was a stun shot, and he still disappeared, which is weird. But I'll take it. I'm hoping that they've patched that in that 970 meg patch. But as soon as you've killed those 2 people will be above you now, both of them archers. What we're going to do, we're going to kill the guy on the right, and the guy on the left is going to drop down. When the guy on the left drops down, we're going to kill him with the axes. He disappeared again. Everyone's fucking disappearing. It's like a Houdini festival. And then after you compete with this guy, the door across from us is going to open up, and more dudes are going to spill out. So there's those 2 that came from this door, so smoke them both if you can. I missed the guy on the left, which is disappointing, but I can hit him with one of the pots, hopefully. And then as soon as you kill this dude, the door across from us opens up. There's an archer up there before, though, so I'm going to hold my shot, dodge the archer, and then hit those two on the spawn, and then kill the archer. And if you go close to him, he'll drop down. When he drops down, mash melee, and beat him up. Once you've done that, fight is over. Looked easy, didn't it? Looked quick, concise, barely a section. But I'm telling you now, when I first got here, I got my ass kicked. So, because it went so well, I'm like, has the difficulty changed? And I double check it, and it's definitely still on Survivor, because it turns out you cannot change difficulty on this difficulty. I believe you might be able to change it on the other ones, because it says on the tooltip, doesn't it? If you're finding it too easy or too hard, change the difficulty. But if you're on Survivor, you can't. So I would think on the other ones you can. But I don't know. So do not hold me to that, it's something I cannot proclaim to understand. Something that's worth noting as I rekindle all the resources that I used to make sure that Lara's ready for anything. You're not going to see an achievement pop at the end of this. More observant viewers will understand why, but for those who perhaps weren't paying attention or don't understand how the system works, but on the Xbox One, you cannot get achievements when you are offline. Yeah, it's that shit. Worst console ever fucking made, I hate it. For some reason, they've completely forgotten all the things that made the Xbox 360 great. 100% disregarded all of them, and now the interface is clunky, stupid, and nowhere near as intuitive. Everything takes far too long to do anything. You have to do several clicks to do what took 2 clicks on the 360, and then the achievements don't pop when you're offline, which is gay. And you might be thinking, well, Chris, why don't you go online? And we come back to the reason why you might already know why I'm not getting achievements, because I have a gig update that I refuse to take. And I only refuse to take it because every time I turn this game on I want to play it, and I can't play it if I'm sat an hour and a half waiting for something to download that I really shouldn't need, because if games came out fully functional we wouldn't need fucking patches. But they don't anymore. They come out like broken pieces of dog shit, and we end up getting discounts and all kinds of bullshit to compensate for the fact that the devs can't create the games the way they used to, which is bizarre to me, but it is what it is, you know, you get on with it. So will always be. And there it is, guys. So you're not going to see it pop up for 2 reasons. 1, I already have it, because I did it on my practice run, and 2, because I'm offline, and unfortunately it's not how that feature works. So whenever I go back online, I then have to go to the achievement screen and wait for like 10 minutes for them all to populate, because once again the machine can't do simple fucking things, and it's just, I don't get it, but it's the way it is. And everybody will be like, well, Chris, why don't you just use PlayStation 4 as your main console? I'm already invested in my gamertag, guys. I'm already invested in Microsoft, because that's where all my friends are, you know. It's the thing where I have my monthly subscription to online services that I barely use. You know, it's already been paid for, bought and sold. So it's one of those things where it's not productive. And additionally, the only game I play on my PS4 is Bloodborne, because I only have that, Everybody's Gone to Rapture, and the Uncharted collection. Which, the Uncharted collection is great, and I am going to be getting back to it, but at the moment there's a couple of projects looming that I want to finish, and there's a couple of projects coming soon that I have no idea when they'll arrive. I have both the Yakuza Inzen, and is it Inzen? Kaizen? I can't remember. There's 2. There's one for PS3, set in feudal Japan, one for PS4, which is the sequel. I've bought both of those, but apparently it'll take like 30 days to ship them, so there's probably still a while left on them. And then I've pre-ordered Yakuza Kiwami, which comes out on the 21st, which could take a month to arrive, and then they'll charge me twice as much for the game because I'll get hit with fucking import tax. And they'll be like, but it said it cost 35 quid. Why does this say 65 quid? What the hell are you adding on here? This is not 20% VAT. This is ridiculous, assholes. But, you know, you never know. I might dodge it. If any of my subscribers are living in Japan, and you would be kind enough to tick boxes called gift, and I give you money to send me games, I would love you forever, but I don't have that subscriber or that friend, so unfortunately I can't. But, and it's strange that with the import tax stuff, if somebody sends you something and they mark it as a gift, it's completely immune to import tax. Crazy. I don't understand it. I don't proclaim to understand tax at all. Tax is that thing that people invented so that the poor people could never have enough money to do anything other than work. What a fantastic concept. But use the trebuchet, knock out the gate, sorry, and that's the first part of this puzzle solved. one more part coming up, and we're going to be forced to do it quick because we're being attacked by another one of those trebuchets.
Just one more shot.
So as you can hear, Lara's getting all up it on us. These people are firing at us, but they're not as accurate as you would think. So hopefully you'll not take too much damage when you do this. There's a little bit of environmental puzzles, but I don't want to mess with it, so I'm going to kill the people sniping us. So shoot the pots. The pots with the Greek fire in them are by far the most effective way of killing dudes. Although I go for a headshot and I miss because this guy's got the rickets. Sit still, you tosser. And watch this. I cannot touch my analog light enough to make a micro adjustment to hit this vase. I'm telling you now, you could have had like an overly sensitive clit and I would have touched it the softest way. You barely could have felt me touching it, and that's what I was doing to the analog, and she wasn't even moving. Straight up not even moving. I had to full on dead zone rapage knock it to make her move, and when she did, she overshot it by a mile. It was hilarious. And it's the tiny stuff like that that you don't see because you're not playing. If you'd have been able to feel what I was doing then, crazy. Like, and it's all to do with how she moves against the resistance of the impulse to go into cover. The game wants you in cover, you're trying to move around it, it's kind of clipping, it's kind of not, it's kind of magnetizing, it's kind of not, it's weird. And then there's the whole analogs and how the analogs are calibrated. It's a whole bunch of meta information that you probably couldn't give a shit about. But I think we can all agree that is one of the penalties that you pay for having a system that is autonomous and it's not at the player's control. If it was at the player's control, you'd never run into that issue. Like, that's the great thing about Uncharted. You can watch my brutal walkthrough and you will never once hear me complain or make any kind of critical assessment of Nathan Drake's ability to hug the corner of a piece of geometry, because it's not an issue in that game, because when you're going to cover, it's initiated by you. And that is the pitfall of having a system that is controlled by external factors. But here's me dodging this guy with the axe and shooting him. Not having the best success with the dodges, so I shoot him in the face a bunch, but he takes it. This guy's got a fucking chin on him. Jesus, he's like cabbage. Anybody remember him? That dude's dangerous, man. Blocking all your punches with his face. Doesn't even care. But here is the second of the two trebuchet puzzles. What you need to do here is the first goal is to have the area that I just pulled towards me go towards that tower over there. So I made a mistake doing that, and then I realised, and I'll reverse it. Then what happens is when you climb up the tower, you're able to connect a bucket to it. Once you've connected the bucket, you have to seal the bottom of it by pulling a lever, and then once you've done that, you can fill it full of water. And then the trick here is to release just the right amount of water so that it lines up the jump that you need. So now that I'm over here, I can pull this towards me. I now have to move back towards the trebuchet so I can climb on top of the balancing beam and use it to climb onto that tower I just looked at then. It's a pretty clever implementation of some basic principles. I really do like the puzzle solving in this game because all of it is simple, and you only need that eureka moment to realise what it wants of you, and you can do it. It's not like you have to write anything down or you have to memorise any bullshit. It's just, you know, monkey see, monkey do, and I love that. So connect this to the bucket, and then when you rotate it, it's going to drop the bucket, and then you can start filling it with water. Pretty simple stuff. It's cool though. I appreciate it, and considering this is the last part of the game, throwing in a puzzle like this at this moment is an interesting way of pacing your game. And once again, I think that this game has really curious pacing. Not always complementing the aspects of the game that I enjoy, but it's definitely to be applauded because it's so very specifically its own. And not many games do that. Some games get pressured into having more combat, less of the more, you know, visceral stuff, cerebral stuff, and others don't. Yeah, I made a comment in my Last of Us walkthrough where I was like, I wish the game would commit to nothing happening more. And it sounds like the complete antithesis of what you want in a game. Here's a section where nothing happens, but in that game, for the purposes of that gameplay and that story, I think it's really good because it builds tension. It's one of the great ways where a sign of a good horror game is not a horror game that's full of fucking cheap-ass jump scares. Because you can get jump scares from out. You know, you really can. Just turn your iPod up too loud and then scroll to the middle of a song and then press play. Boom, jump scare. Simple. Anybody can do that bullshit. It's not hard. However, tension and atmosphere, that's the real horror. You know, it's not what's happening, it's the anticipation of what's about to happen. And That's where a lot of horror games get it wrong. Because they're not subtle enough. It's either there's a maniac with a fucking coat hanger going nuts on the back of a piano, or no, what's happening? You know, there's no middle ground. Subtleties, guys. It's all about the subtlety. We've already gone over the devil being in the details. You've got to have those details for there to be any devil there. You can't just have flaccid, you know, unceremoniously graceless penis. You have to have porn star quality, highly erect, manly, doing his thing, a symbol of fertility, phallic monster of destroyingness. Which is a bunch of words that doesn't make a lot of sense, but there you go. As we use the catapult here, another manly action. But did you see how the first shot technically showed that they were in the splash zone, and then the actual projectile missed? So that's why I say you want to overshoot it rather than undershoot it, or you'll miss. And then take damage like me right now. So I look like a goddamn sanguinary swirly girl. Well, send it over there, get rid of all of them, and then turn it to the left again, and then cruise on and kill these dudes. And once you've done that, you're going to be moving towards the gate. There's going to be a couple of skirmishes coming up, and then we're going to be moving towards a very tricky fight. And when I say tricky, I mean it. In this walkthrough, it was the area that took the longest to record, because I died about 3 or 4 times. Once again, ironically, on my first playthrough, I got it first attempt. Never even noticed that that was a section where you could die. But on the recording, because of the different gear, because of my different Lara, definitely had an interesting experience here. So hopefully I can guide you through it. And if you do choose to use any of the special arrows, you'll probably piss it. But I'm going to go in with my Remington or Benelli or whatever the hell that shotgun is on this game. And we're going to introduce them to the concept of buckshot. But it's risky, I'm not going to lie. The very first opening gambit is a pretty dangerous one, because it means I have to do the entire fight one hit away from death. But the good news is, feasibly you can no damage that fight. It's just tricky because they're so fucking accurate, and they're accurate in a dumb way. Like, the more you try to avoid them, the easier it is sometimes for them to hit you. It's crazy. But you'll see what I mean when we get there. It's kind of dodgy too, because there's no cover when you climb up, so moving into cover is really dangerous. There's more chance of taking damage at the very beginning, getting out of the climb into cover, than there is at any other point in that fight. Because at that point you can't control it, so there's a lot of luck happening. Everything after that's down to you and your positioning and your skill. Before that, kinda stupid. But I put my shotgun on here, and I take out this fella with a quick shot. What a wonderful sound that gun makes. See you later, friend. I really like the way the shotgun works in this game. I enjoy it. A little bit too much. But there goes that fella. And as we push up and we climb across this next chasm, there's going to be a spawn over to the left. There's a pot that can help get rid of a couple guys, but there's a couple we're going to have to do the old-fashioned way. So, shoot the pot when they line up, get rid of as many as you can. And then there's like 1 or 2 dudes left just over there. There's that guy up there. Start shooting at us. Couple of clips on his head. It should only take 3, but I'm not very accurate at the moment. Can't criticise the accuracy in this game though. For the most, when you put the aimer on people and you fire, it hits. It's only fleeting that you get those moments where the bullet strays. So, for the most, no complaints there from me. Although it can happen, so I could understand if you've had a bad experience. But it is nowhere near as, for instance, as frustratingly annoying as something like The Evil Within, or Uncharted to a lesser extent. There's a crossfade here too. All I've done there, guys, is I went to the left to see what was behind that rope pull door, and it turned out to be nothing. So instead of showing it, I wanted to try and line the video up and I couldn't do it. So instead, crossfade, I don't waste your time, we can get on with this next sequence. And what a sequence it is. So this is Thou Shall Not Pass moment, which is a pretty strange choice considering it's kind of aged and eclectic, but there you go, they're Lord of the Rings fans. And then at the end of this is going to be the introduction to the tough fight. So this is really tricky coming up. The checkpoint is from Azure Mantle. So you're going to notice as I'm climbing, when I get to the top, there's going to be an edit, which you should see if you look close enough, because you've got to climb and she's climbing up. So now, this is it. Big old fight, lots of dudes. I go all the way over here. I get hit, believe it or not, by somebody throwing a fucking cocktail, I think. I dodge the archer, I kill him, and then from up here, the only people who can get to me are the people running at me, like him. The archers on the left can't hit me, and I can hit them because I can shoot the pots. That guy just then nearly did. but hopefully if you keep moving, you shouldn't have an issue. Once I've done that, I've got rid of the two archers that are the biggest pain in the dick. These two fellas are now chasing me, but they're slow. They're like, and I get hit from behind by an archer. So, very close to being very dead at this point. Luckily enough, the arrows don't count. These two guys come up to me, so I'm going to use this pot, wait for it, take them both out, and now I know the only people left are archers. I'm almost certain. There might be one guy who's not an archer, but I'm certain archers are left, and here he is, sneaking his way up, making zero sound, wearing my goddamn Astros, and I can't hear you creeping. And I think there's one more dude. But do you see how the game is dynamically moving? See what Laura's doing? It's another one of those things that's a cool touch, but it cock-blocks you when you're trying to use the cover technique. You don't want Lara sticking her fucking head out when you're trying to do the complete opposite. It's dangerous. But when she says yes, the sequence is done, and you just witnessed right there one of the tougher fights in the game, believe it or not. Looked easy, didn't it? But that can go really, really rough really quickly. So thank you very much for watching, and you take care now.